All right. Well, welcome to the podcast, Valerie. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. Excited to hear a little bit more about your story. And before we kind of get into that, why don't you tell us just a little bit about who you are and what you do to help therapists?
Yeah, absolutely. So, really, I'm a therapist at heart. So, I'm a therapist, I'm a practice owner, but I also help therapists build their own practices. And in particular, I like to think of myself as a marketing strategist because at the end of the day, marketing is a huge part of building your practice.
Hmm.
And I think there's a lot of strategy behind it. And so, that's one of the big ways I help therapists right now build their own businesses.
Awesome. And we first met in kind of a fun way. You were part of our SEO Basecamp Live mastermind group. When was that? It was a couple years ago, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was a few years ago.
A few years
When I
ago.
was still figuring out what the heck was working for my practice, when I was still
Yeah.
figuring out my own strategy.
Awesome. So since you figured it all out now though, right? You got everything under control
Well, I
there.
always feel like marketing is always a work in
Yeah,
progress.
I'm kidding. Yeah, ex exactly. Yeah. Well, why don't you tell us just a little bit more about your story? Like I said before I hit record, I was just kind of spending time on your website, and it seems like a lot of the times for folks who become coaches or people who help others kind of go where they have been, it always kind of comes from this story of, yeah, some pain, you figured out kind of what works for you. Just tell us a little bit more about your story and how you came to start to help other therapists build their practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came into private practice really with no intention of going into private practice. I think, like a lot of folks, I found my way to private practice because I couldn't stay in community mental health. And I think a lot of
Mm,
people, probably a lot of your listeners relate to that.
yeah.
I loved my job in community mental health, but I had two kids and it was just unaffordable. Couldn't do it.
Hmm.
And so when I started my private practice, I had no idea what I was doing. I wish I could say that I had been intentional, that I had a great plan and a strategy. I didn't. I rented an office and I plopped up a Psychology Today profile and
Hmm.
I waited and I
Hmm.
waited and I waited.
Yeah.
And then I panicked and went a little broke for a while. And so in desperation, like a lot of folks, I started consuming courses and YouTube
Hmm.
and worked with some coaches and quite frankly, spent an awful lot of money
Mm,
trying to figure out what is this private practice thing all about.
yeah.
And it took a lot of time and a couple years before it finally clicked for me. I had spent years trying to do what I thought I was supposed to do.
Mm.
There's a lot of noise in
Oh
this
yeah.
space, a
Yeah.
lot of noise. Um, I had been following what I thought was, the rule book, what you're supposed to do, and it never really worked. And so,
Hmm.
just like you said, it comes for me helping other therapists, it comes from this place of I don't want other therapists to spend years making the same mistakes that
Right.
I did.
Yeah. I think that that's probably really validating for folks listening when you say that there's a lot of noise and you tried all the things you're supposed to do and it didn't work. And I think that is super important, I think, for people to get, because there's probably so many people who do find themselves in that frustrating place, and like for me in my world, I hear a lot of times like, yeah, I tried blogging and it just doesn't work, and it's just good to recognize like every practice, every therapist, practice owner is so unique, and the people they serve are unique, and it's really finding out like what works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always joke with my therapist clients, the ones that I work with, unlike some practice coaches, my practice was not an overnight success. I'm not
Hmm.
an overnight success story. And so if anybody's out there listening thinking, I've been grinding at my practice for what feels like
Hmm.
forever now and it's still not
Hmm.
clicking, that doesn't mean it won't work.
Yeah.
What it means is we haven't found the sweet spot yet
Yeah. Hmm.
for you. And I think Daniel, you hit the nail on the head. We have to find the sweet spot for you, your practice, your clients. It's
Yeah.
not someone else's rule book. What worked for them is not necessarily going to work for you. And it doesn't mean you're
Right.
doing it wrong.
Right, absolutely. As we're chatting, I'm thinking about the conversations I've had with my wife, and she's in private practice. And, I'll be talking about some work we're doing with a client or website, SEO stuff. And she's like, I'm not doing that. Is that okay? She starts to get worried. I'm like, yes, it's okay. Like, you've got a referral network in place. You've got other things in place that are outside of specifically SEO or, hearing about social media or something like that. I'm like, that's okay. Like, as long as it's working for you. And it's hard. It's like sometimes we feel like, oh, this person said this thing, so I have to do it. Even with stuff that I say, we've got people who listen to this podcast all the time. If it doesn't work for you, then reevaluate it. I won't be offended.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you're talking about something so important. We as therapists, I'll call us out, we hang out in all those online Facebook groups and all those online
Hmm.
forums and,
Yeah.
we ask for advice and, we judge ourselves pretty harshly when we follow the advice and it's not
Yeah.
working. And we
Yeah.
wonder, what is it about me
Mm.
that it's not working?
Right.
I always reflect that, it probably isn't you.
Mm.
You have other things that will work really well for you.
Yeah.
It's not that thing.
Right. Yeah. So we got to kind of get curious and kind of dig in and kind of like what you said, you did some work. You did some grinding to find out what is that thing that's going to work for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me a little bit more about like what were some of the things that did work for you and some of like the shifts that you had to make in your marketing to really get some momentum in your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for me, the biggest shift was I really had to figure out who I was talking to
Mm,
in my marketing and in my messaging, which, I know is what we say all the time in marketing, but I think there's something really important to that. I had to take a deep dive and I had to take off my therapist hat and really
hmm.
start to think and see the world through the eyes of my ideal client. Who was I talking to?
Yeah.
And really figure out, well, how how do they go about finding a therapist?
Yeah. Hmm.
Probably not going to their primary care doctor.
Hmm.
And really stepping into that and realizing, you know what? That's not how they're going to find a therapist. How they find a therapist is not how I would find a therapist. What they're looking for in a therapist is probably actually not what I would be looking for in a therapist.
Hmm.
So I need to start to figure out, how do they talk? How do they think? How do they move through the world?
Mm.
Then market like that. And that was the really, really big shift for me that just really started to make everything click. And so, just like you were talking about with your wife, that's when I realized, oh, here are all these strategies that every other therapist in my peer network is doing. That's why those don't work because their
Hmm.
clients are different than my clients.
Yeah.
That's why I
Who?
had to do SEO because those are my clients. They're Googling at 2 a.m. How do I
Right.
fix this problem?
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about, who your clients were that you were trying to capture so people can
Yeah,
kind of
so
can see that.
absolutely. So I specialize in high conflict couples, right? And
Okay.
so, I think there's a lot of folks can probably relate to this. They know who I'm talking about. There's a lot of shame involved. They're not talking
Mm.
to other people about this necessarily. So they are talking to Google, at 2 a.m. after they've had that really big blowout fight.
Yeah.
House. That's who
Yeah.
they're turning to. And so
Hmm.
that's where I need to be because that's where when they're going to want to find me.
Yeah. That's good. So I'm sure that helped you kind of create some blog content or just content for your website to answer those questions that people are asking at 2 a.m. after that fight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It informs everything. It informs that blog content. It informs how I write my website. It informs how I set up my back office systems because at 2 a.m., they actually want to book that consultation. They don't want to
Yeah.
wait for me to call
Hmm.
them back at 10 a.m. the next day,
Yeah.
but informs everything that I do.
Right. Yeah. I would think like, you brought up that shame piece, they're at 2 a.m. tired at the end of their rope. They want to be able to just book that appointment probably without, they're not gonna pick up the phone and leave a voicemail at 2 a.m. probably.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Their kids are asleep, right? They're
Hmm.
not they're not going to go through that maybe that process that we as therapists would like them to go through. And so
Right.
it's really, I think a lot of therapists can relate to this. It's meeting them where they're at. Like where they're
Yeah.
going to be at in that moment when they are ready to
Yeah.
schedule a consultation and take that step. And it's just stepping into that space and saying,
Yeah.
"Okay, here, I'm going to make this really easy on you."
Yeah. Yeah, and back to kind of where we started on this topic of like figuring out your ideal clients and who you want to attract to your practice and website. Were there any like practical exercises that you walked through to kind of discover, who that client is? You said you did a deep dive. So what did that like logistically look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, I use this concept called, your zone of genius. I'm sure a lot of folks have heard about this. It's just really stepping back and asking yourself, who are the clients that light you up? When you
Mm,
think about sitting in that therapy room, who are the clients where you feel like you're doing your absolute best work? And this is important, you also feel the most fueled by. Because we
yeah.
can do our best work as therapists with clients that at the end of the day, we're really drained and we're exhausted.
Yeah.
That's not a sustainable practice. You
Yeah.
can't have a full caseload like that, maybe one or two. So it's
Right.
really stepping back and saying, when I think about the clients I've worked with, who are the ones I do my best work with? And I also feel really fueled by. So there are no more Sunday scaries. You're not
Mm,
waking up in the morning looking at your caseload.
yeah.
But one or two clients, we can all admit it,
Yeah.
that we cross our fingers and we hope they cancel. We're talking about the ones that you really, really want to see.
Yeah.
And then give yourself permission because it's your practice, it's your business to build a business around only those clients. And it might sound counterintuitive, but that's actually going to be an easier business to build than
Mm,
this generalist practice where you're trying to appeal to everybody. So give
yeah.
yourself permission to only work within that zone of genius that really lights you up.
Yeah, I love that because that, like you said, that is sustainable. That's what makes your business exciting. I think I relate to that even in my own business. There's those clients that are a little bit more draining, and then there's those clients who are paying us more and bothering us less.
Yes,
And we just yeah, and
absolutely.
those are the ones that we're going to work long term and probably get the best results for. So totally relate to that. And kind of on that point, just like burnout and sustainability. I want to talk a little bit about the summit that you're putting
Yes.
on. That is
Yeah.
coming up. If you're listening to this, it is coming up soon. So tell us a little bit about why you created the Savvy Practice Summit.
Yeah. So I created the Savvy Practice Summit. It's a 3-day, absolutely free virtual event that's designed to take you from broke to booked. And we are covering everything from marketing to money mindset to business strategy to moving beyond one-on-one therapy. We're covering everything. And I really built this summit for therapists like me who
Hmm.
felt like they were caught up in all of the noise. And
Yeah.
also who were tired of the fluff. It's one thing in my coaching business practice with Valerie, we say is no fluff. We don't do fluff
Mm.
here. You're not going to come to the summit and hear the same old tired advice about putting up a Psychology Today profile. We're not going to say go out and build a referral network and not give you any actionable tips. We
Hmm.
are actually going to do deep dives into what do you need to do to build your practice. And so really I built this summit for therapists who were just like me and who
Love it.
needed to figure out what do I do? And
Yeah.
you are one of the amazing speakers who's not giving
Yay.
any fluff, who's telling people what you need to do.
I'm trying. Yeah, you put together a great group of people. I was looking at the list of folks yesterday, and there's some good people and some good friends of mine on there. So excited to be a part of it, and thank you for the invite. And what was the dates, and what is the actual like structure of it? What are people going to expect when they sign up for this free summit?
Sure, absolutely. So the dates of the summit are March 10th through March 12th. Like I mentioned, it is totally free. We have 8 speakers every day, and this is pre-recorded. So this is one of the beautiful things about this summit is you do not have to cancel your sessions. You do not
Yeah.
have to arrange childcare. You do not have to flip your schedule. We want you to be able to watch these interviews on your own time. So when you sign up for the free ticket, you have 48 hours to watch the interviews for that day. So Monday, that first day of the 10th, it's all about marketing. Tuesday, it's all about business strategy. So you feel confident running your practice, confident setting your fees, all of those
Yeah.
intricacies of running a business. And then the third day, Wednesday, it's about getting creative and
Mm,
expanding beyond traditional therapy, whether that means adding new modalities to your practice or adding something totally different, like a new income stream.
mm,
Every day
yeah.
has something to grow your business and help you feel more confident about the future of the practice. And like I said, it's totally free. You can do it on demand on your own time.
Love
So
it.
it's really designed for working practice owners.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that. I think I told you that, like someone who's being interviewed for in the summit, like we pre-recorded our conversation and interview, and even I didn't have to cancel a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
to show up live, and I felt like it was just very organized, and you gave us everything we needed to make it smooth. So I'm sure that the therapists and practice owners who are checking this out are going to receive the same quality care. So thank you for that, for your
Yeah.
organization. It's inspiring.
Absolutely. We love organization. We love it.
Love it. Awesome. Well, so if you want to sign up for that, so we put together a short link for that. You can go to privatepracticeelevation.com/savvy, and we'll also have it in the show notes for this episode, which is episode number, let me pull it up here, 181. So privatepracticeelevation.com/181, and we'll include all of your links, Valerie, for all the things that you're doing, so people
Perfect.
can learn a little more about you. Before we hop off, I was just wondering, like, is there one more piece of advice that you can give for therapists that you just want to leave people with, whether that's about the summit or just marketing in general, building a practice, not to put you on the spot, anything
Yeah.
you want to leave folks with?
Yeah. I think one thing that I would leave folks with is just this thought that if you are grinding through in your private practice and you're feeling really stuck, is to just remember the problem isn't you,
Mm,
it's your marketing.
that's
And
so
guess
good.
what? We can fix your marketing.
Mm,
Fix that.
yeah, that's so simple. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Valerie, for your time. It's been great chatting with you, and I enjoyed hearing a little more about your story. And looking forward to the summit and just all the great resources and connections that people are going to make from it.
Yeah. Thank you. So great to be here.